Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful. I'd like to welcome you, dear viewers, to another in our series, Forces of Evil. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah's peace and blessings be on each and every one of you. In the previous segments of our program, we've been looking at the ways by which the satanic forces may attack us. And we began to look in our previous program at how we may prevent the harm from particular harm that comes from these sources. Among them, we talked about fearing Allah, putting our fear, directing it to God instead of directing it to His creation. Fear of God is something which everyone should have in their hearts if they're to worship Him properly, if their prayers are to be accepted. This is fear of God in the sense of fear of His displeasure, as opposed to fearing God the way we might fear a loose tiger. We also pointed out there's great importance for sincerity, that we be sincere in our worship, sincere in the various acts that we do, because worship encompasses all the acts in our lives, that we do them sincerely, not to be seen by others, etc. Now, what we're going to look at in these next couple of programs are how do we protect our homes? This is our base, the foundation. How do we protect our homes from the evil, satanic forces around us as individuals, around us in our communities, etc.? So the first method is, of course, whenever we enter our homes, we should remember God. If we start from this point, remembrance of God is basically the best way to defeat the satanic forces. When we said to fear God, this involves remembering God. If we can't remember Him, we're not going to fear Him. Sincerity. We cannot be sincere to God, directing our worship to God alone, if we don't remember Him. So remembrance of God in our homes, this is one of the best ways to fortify it and to protect it from evil. Now, Prophet Muhammad, may God's peace and blessing be upon him, had instructed us in a narration from Abu Malik al-Ash'ari to say, whenever we enter our homes, or whenever we leave it, he said, إني أسألك خير المولج وخير المخرج بسم الله ولجنا وبسم الله خرجنا وعلى ربنا توكلنا. Then we should give greetings to the people in the house, saying Salaam Alaikum to them. That dua says, or that supplication says, O Allah, indeed I ask you for the good upon entering and upon leaving. In the name of Allah we have entered, and in the name of Allah we have left. And upon Allah our Lord we have depended. So, what we're doing in this first fortification or first means of protecting our homes is that right from the very first step we enter into the home, we do it in the name of God. This should help to keep the evil things that we might be bringing back with us into the home. That we make this dua first, put ourselves in the correct spiritual state of mind. We don't come back in the home angry with the results of some things that happen into our office, and we have this, misplaced or displaced aggression where we take it out on our family, we take it out on our wives, our children, etc., because we're bringing this stuff back home with us. No, we're coming into the home, first thing we should do, make this dua. Remember God. Remember ultimately that whatever we do, it should be done pleasing to God. And then, as the Prophet ﷺ said, we should greet the people of our homes. Now, this is a general instruction which Allah Himself has given in the Quran. In Surah Nur, the 24th chapter, verse 61, Allah there says, فَإِذَا دَخَلْتُمْ بُيُوتًا فَسَلِّمُوا عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِكُمْ تَحِيَّةً مِنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ مُبَارَكَةً طَيِّبَةً. When you enter houses, salute each other with a blessed, excellent greeting from Allah. This is the instruction which Allah has given us. This is a standard practice for Muslims. Whenever we come in, we give salams. That is, we say, Salam alaikum. Now this salam alaikum, though it is, generally taken to just mean like hi, hello, how are things, type of thing, this greeting, salam alaikum, actually it is a very deep, it has a lot of deep meaning which relates back to God. As-salam is actually one of God's names. Peace. So when we say Assalamu alaikum, we're saying really, may God's peace be on you. May the peace of God be upon you. So we wish that for the people of the house when we come in. And we have a narration from the Prophet ﷺ collected in Tirmidhi, which is authentic, where Prophet ﷺ had said, my son, he related this actually to Anas, who was his personal servant, whose mother had dedicated him to the Prophet ﷺ, Anas ibn Malik. And the Prophet ﷺ on one occasion said to him, my son, when you enter upon your family, greet them. It will be a blessing for you and your family. So you don't surprise them also. You greet them ahead so they know, they're aware of your coming, so it doesn't become a kind of a surprise where you might catch them in circumstances which they don't really necessarily want to be caught in. Now, there's another narration which the Prophet ﷺ gave, guaranteeing for whoever does this particular act a special guarantee from God. He said, there are three groups of people who will all have guidance from Allah, the Exalted, the Sublime. And he mentions the first, the second, and then the third. He said, the third is a man who greets his family when he enters his home. He has a guarantee from Allah, the Exalted, the Sublime. So we see there's strong encouragement to greet when we enter the home. First one is to mention Allah's name when we're entering the home. Second one, to greet the members of the home. The third now, because what we do when we come home, oftentimes we sit down, we eat and drink, etc. The third level now is to remember Allah when the time for eating comes. Prophet ﷺ had said in a hadith narrated by Jabir ibn Abdullah, and this is found in Sahih Muslim, if a man remembers Allah while entering his house and while eating, Satan says to his fellow devils, there is neither shelter nor supper for you. On the other hand, if he enters without remembering Allah, Satan says, you have found shelter. And if he does not remember Allah while eating, Satan says, you have found both shelter and supper. So, by remembering Allah before eating, this is a means of also keeping Satan away from us in the area of the food, the very food that we eat. That he can partake of that food, can enter into our eating, where we end up now out of our desires, ending up overeating, for example, or eating things which are haram, all these kind of things, and not caring, not being careful about it, etc. Remembering Allah is to help us gain control over our habits, make sure we eat according to the way of the sunnah, the proper way, the way of the believers, not to fill one's stomach. To eat a third, drink a third, and leave a third for breathing. This is the correct way. Of course, one might say, well, what's the big deal? What does it matter whether one eats to one's full and has a full stomach, etc.? These are material kind of things, really. But the point is that the material cannot be separate from the spiritual. As we are spiritual beings, we exist within physical bodies. This material world in which we exist, is connected to us. So where we are weak in these material things, we end up overeating, etc. We're careless about what we eat. We don't really, try to ensure that we're eating halal, what is permissible, etc. Then this is going to overflow into our general lives. That in our general lives, we will be very lax. We're not careful to avoid evil and forbidden things. We find excuses, we accept excuses, etc. Those physical things or habits in the home are oftentimes reflected outside of the home. The fourth principle is when we go to the bathroom, because of course we're dealing here now with the common things in the home. One, we're eating. We're eating, either if we're working outside, we eat breakfast, we come home and eat dinner. Maybe we don't eat lunch there. Or if we work near our home, we may eat lunch there also. Or people generally eat 3 times a day. So therefore, it's a very important time and circumstance in which to remember Allah, to call on God's name, you know. And this, as I said, prevents us from evil things associated with eating in the home. The second thing is that of going to the bathroom. It's another thing that we're doing all the time. Of course, this could be within the home as well as outside the home. Prophet ﷺ taught us to say, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-khubuthi wal khaba'ith. O Allah, I seek refuge in you from the evil male and female jinns. So this is a way also of protecting ourselves. You know, that these satanic forces may come at us very strongly in our times of weakness when we're using the toilet, because this is the time when we're in our weakest state, you know, where we've brought ourselves, our energies are down, we're into a very weakened state when we're involved in passing, you know, things from our body. We're in a weakened state, which we can easily be affected by satanic forces. So we seek refuge in Allah when going to the bathroom. Maybe we go to the bathroom more often than we even eat. So this is something very, very important to establish that. I mean, people who succumb to the satanic forces in the bathroom, they're not used to protecting themselves in this way. You'll find they go to bathrooms and they write all kinds of things on the walls. You know, public bathrooms, you find all kinds of things written. You wonder to yourself, what kind of minds could have written this? You know, or somebody, you know, just to gross other people out, you know, he may take some of his feces and wipe it on the walls. You know, any kind of things can happen inside there. So the point is that protecting us from this, from any kind of corruption in our actions or our thoughts and practices, then we remember Allah when we are going to use the bathroom. The fifth way of protecting ourselves is to protect the home from what may be referred to as the voice of Satan. We have a verse in the Quran that is in Surah Al-Isra 17 verse 64, where Allah says there, وَاسْتَفْسِزْ مَنِ اسْتَطَعْتَ مِنْهُمْ بِصَوْتِكَ. Allah is challenging Satan. Fool those whom you can with your seductive voice. Allah goes on to say that, of course, you can't seduce my true servants. Now, what is the voice of Satan? Mujahid, the student of Ibn Abbas, who was considered to be the major interpreter of the Quran amongst the companions of the Prophet, may God's peace and blessing be upon him. Mujahid said the voice of Satan is singing. These are of course, these corrupt songs, the songs which are not permissible, you know, from the Islamic perspective. And the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ had said, in another narration which is found in Sahih Sunan Ibn Majah, some people from my followers will drink alcohol but call it by a different name. Stringed and wind instruments will be played for them, and women singers will perform for them. And Allah will cause the ground to swallow them, and He will turn some of them into apes and pigs. So one of the ways of purifying the home from the voice of Satan is to keep out singing, keep out the music things from our home, the forbidden forms. In another narration, the Prophet ﷺ had said, there will be people from my nation who claim adultery, silk, alcohol, and stringed and wind instruments to be lawful. And Ibn Mas'ud, one of the companions of the Prophet, may God's peace and blessing be upon him, had said, music and singing cultivate hypocrisy in the heart, just as water cultivates a plant. Yazid ibn al-Walid said, beware of music and singing. They certainly decrease modesty, increase desires, and destroy character. They are a substitute for wine because they intoxicate. Abu Hanifa had said, listening to music and singing is sin. And so on and so forth. The point is that we need to purify our homes from the voice of Satan, the satanic voices. Voices which influence our home, as the companions have suggested, that it develops a kind of hypocrisy in our hearts, where we're attracted and we're caught up in this kind of thing, but yet on the outside we're supposed to be Muslims and we're trying to to do that right thing, but we have this big dichotomy, between our actions at home and our actions in the mosque and in public. We end up becoming then, in that way, hypocrites. Now, on the other hand, we should try to put some things in the home, besides the mentioning of Allah's name when we come in, mentioning of Allah's name when we go into the bathroom, etc. One of the things we should do is that we should read the Quran frequently in our homes. Prophet ﷺ, in a hadith narrated by Abu Huraira, and which is found in Sahih Sunan al-Tirmidhi, had said, the Prophet ﷺ was supposed to have said, do not make your homes like graveyards, for indeed Satan does not enter a home wherein Surah Al-Baqarah is read. So we should try to read Surah Al-Baqarah in our homes on a regular basis. And before reading the Quran, of course, we are taught to seek refuge in Allah before reading the Quran. Allah said in Surah Nahl, the 16th chapter, verse 98, whenever you recite the Quran, seek refuge in Allah from Satan the cursed. فَإِذَا قَرَأْتَ الْقُرْآنَ فَاسْتَعِذْ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ. Furthermore, the Prophet ﷺ had encouraged us not only to read the Quran, but to reflect on the meanings. Some people get caught up very much in just memorizing portions of the Quran, but they don't understand a single thing in the Quran. However, Allah warns us very carefully. أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ أَمْ عَلَى قُلُوبٍ أَقْفَالُهَا. Won't they reflect on the Quran, or are their hearts locked up? Reflection on the Quran is very, very important. When we read the Quran, it should not just be a ritual reading. We have to read Surah Al-Baqarah, whatever, just get the book and just read it through, rattle it off between yourself, your wife, your children, whatever. No, it is about reflection on the meaning, because the benefits of the Quran come through reflection on their meanings, understanding. There's guidance there. It's not a book of magical potions that we just recite them and magically everything is going to be. This is a misunderstanding of the Quran and its usage. Some people tend to focus on this kind of thing. They will call me up from time to time and say, do you have a verse? I got this problem, right? One, I need to get married. Do you have a verse you can read that'll get married? Do you have a verse that will make my memory strong? Do you have a verse which will make me pass my examinations? Do you have this is the kind of common approach that people have. And unfortunately, there are people who feed on this, because people would like to have something that's going to protect them. So they say, yes, we have it, you pay some money or whatever, and we'll let you know which are the verses which will do these things for you. But in fact, the whole Quran contains a variety of bits and pieces of information which helps to protect the individual throughout his or her life. And of course, the way in which the Quran should be read should be one which is in slow, measured tones. We shouldn't be reciting one on top of the other, everybody rattling it off, not listening, because Allah tells us in the Quran that if the Quran is recited, we should listen to it. The eighth form of fortification is, as I mentioned earlier, the reading of Surah Al-Baqarah in the home. And we'll look at that in some more detail in our coming session, but just enough for us to say, really, the Prophet ﷺ had said, everything has an apex. The apex of the Quran is Surah Al-Baqarah. Certainly when Satan hears Surah Al-Baqarah being read, he leaves the home wherein it is recited. So there's strong encouragement for us to recite this chapter of the Quran. With that, dear viewers, I'd like to thank you for being with us in this segment of our program, The Forces of Evil, where we have looked at how to prevent this evil from reaching into the very hearts of our homes. And with that, I'd like to bid you farewell for being with us, hoping that you'll continue to follow the program. If you have any words of advice or suggestions, you may write to me, Dr. Bilal Phillips, at Sharjah TV, P.O. Box 111, Sharjah. That is Sharjah. Some of you written to me and spelled it Sharjah. It's not Sharjah, but Sharjah. Sharjah, United Arab Emirates. Or you may email me at my website, bilalphillips.com. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.